Hi, I have my Cherry Creek State Park shirt on. It has a wolf on my back. But look this. And I'm going to read, I don't know if you can see that, but whatever. I'm going to read my Atmosphere's Highest. March 29th, happy Tuesday. Our Lord's surprise visits. Be therefore ready also. Luke 12:40. The great need for the Christian worker is to be ready to face Jesus Christ at any and every turn. This is not easy, no matter what our experience is. The battle is not against sin or difficulties or circumstances, but against being so absorbed in work that we are not ready to face Jesus Christ at every turn. That is the one great need, not the facing of our beliefs or our creed or the questions whether we are of any use, but to face Him. Jesus rarely comes where we expect Him. He appears where we least expect Him. It's true. And always in the most illogical connections. The only way a worker can keep true to God is by being ready for the Lord's surprise visits. It is not service that matters, but intense spiritual reality, expecting Jesus Christ at every turn. This will give our life the attitude of child wonder which He wants it to have. If we are going to be ready for Jesus Christ, we have to stop being religious. That is, using religion as a higher kind of culture. That's interesting. And be spiritually real. If you are looking unto Jesus, avoiding the call of the religious age you live in, and setting your heart on what He wants, on thinking on His line, you will be called impractical and dreamy. But when He appears in the burden and the heat of the day, you will be the only one who is ready. Wow. Trust no one, not even the finest saint who ever walked this earth. Ignore him if he hinders your sight of Jesus Christ. I put a note here on a book I read. I read it a long time ago though. Catherine Marshall, Meeting God at Every Turn. I read Catherine Marshall years ago. When my kids were small, got me interested in Christian writing. She wrote the Christie book that they made into a TV series, and it's funny that I read probably every book of hers, but not the fiction. She has fiction, Julie and Christie. And Christie is the one they made into the TV show, which is based on her mom, who was a missionary in the Appalachian Mountains. So I didn't watch the TV show much either, but she was the wife of the chaplain of the U.S. Senate, Peter Marshall. And how I came to know about her was interesting. My dad's name is Peter, and my grandmother was Scottish, my dad's mom. I'm not technically Scottish though, because my dad was adopted, but my grandmother was Scottish, and the church, this is why I am Presbyterian. My parents met in the Presbyterian Church. The Presbyterian Church is the Church of Scotland, I believe. It's like the Church of Scotland. So yeah, and so we had this book on our bookshelf in our we had bookshelves in the like dining area, built-in bookshelves in California, and we had this book on our bookshelf called A Man Called Peter, and I thought it was interesting. My grandfather's name was Peter, and my dad was named Peter after his dad, his dad that adopted him. And I thought this was a book about the Apostle Peter. My dad also was going to be a pastor, and he was accepted to Princeton Theological Seminary. Yeah, my dad. It's crazy, but his dad did not want him to be a pastor, and he became an engineer, which is interesting. And then later, when I was a teenager, he was a technical writer for IBM. But anyway, so A Man Called Peter is a book by Catherine Marshall about Peter Marshall, her husband, and he died of a heart attack in, I think, 1949, which incidentally was the year my parents got married. But yeah, she edited some of his sermons, and that's called Mr. Jones Meet the Master. It's really good. Like, Google him. Google Peter Marshall. Google Catherine Marshall. Very, very interesting bit of history. And also it was interesting, I was thinking too for a moment, that Sarah should go to Agnes Scott College in Georgia. It's a Christian college that Catherine Marshall went to. And so there's all these little, like I said, I don't believe in luck or coincidences. Little interesting things like Catherine Marshall, for her health, had to move to Florida. She had tuberculosis for a long time. It's funny, some people of the past and some writers and got laid up, and all they could do was just write. And that happened to Catherine Marshall. If you've ever heard of Amy Carmichael, that happened to her. She wrote poetry also. She was a missionary in India, I think. But it's very interesting. But for Catherine Marshall's health, they moved to Florida, and I believe she was in the area where we lived when my oldest was born. So I think she passed away in the 80s at the hospital where my daughter was born in the 80s. So that's interesting. Yeah, I found out something. I don't know what my connection to Luke Perry is, but this was funny. Luke Perry died in the hospital in Los Angeles where I was born, St. Joseph's. And then I looked at when he was born, and he was born exactly 2 days before me, like October 11th, I think, 1966. So, no, he was born at that hospital, but he died at the hospital where I was born, and he was born like 2 days before me. So that was interesting too. But anyways, interesting stuff. I should look into more about Luke Perry. I don't really know that much about him. If you know about Luke Perry, comment below. And look up. I'll put some links below to Peter and Catherine Marshall. But check it out. Meeting God at every turn. Jesus' surprise visits. Love y'all. Hope you're having a great week. Mwah.